Because David sat down.
Good evening. I'd like to call the September the 16th, 2024 meeting of the Dare County Board of Education to order. We are meeting at the County Administrative Building in Manteo, and the time is 5 p.m. Before we begin, I request a moment of silence. I'd like to thank Mr. Chairman Woodard being here tonight and Ms. B. Bassnight from the County Commissioners. I appreciate your support and dedication for our students and staff of Dare County Schools. With that being said, I turn the meeting over to Ms. Mary Ellen Balance.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I see some people from Hatteras. We did have a little bit of a delay today. Thank you for the heads up on that. I came through about 8 o'clock this morning and there was some tide coming over the motels, but it was a good call because it would have been much worse earlier. So. We're watching it. Thank you. I'm staying, so I'm not. Going back tonight would be a little rough, so you guys be careful. I hope all the teachers are just excited to see the kids back in school. The teachers hopefully got some rest over the summer and are full of energy to get everybody back on track. You guys having a good time starting school back. So just glad school's back in session. We got a lot of good stuff coming up this year. It's exciting to see the new program at Manteo with the boat building. I'm excited that's off the ground. So we've got some kind of big project going on at each school. So we'll see how that plays out. So with that, I will let Emerson lead us in the prayer or pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Balance and Emerson. Great job. Now, the next order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I have approval of the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I make a move that we approve the agenda for tonight.
Mr. Payne made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bothwell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. So we have an agenda. Thank you. Next, I'll turn it over to Ms. Bothwell. It is consideration of facility naming. And she is our chair of that team. So Ms. Bothwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The facility naming team received approximately a dozen requests to name the first flight baseball field for Coach Ray Scott. I'm going to read some of the comments and then tell you why the team decided that this was a great idea under our policy 9300. From Stephen Saunders. I'm not reading all the letters. I'm just going to read little bits and pieces if that's okay. Coach started the baseball program here and worked countless hours to make our program what it is today. He's the foundation of this program, and I feel it is well deserved to honor him. His contributions and his leadership make this program one of the best in the state. That was from Mr. Stephen Saunders. This one's from Artie Tillett. During this time, Coach Scott proved to be a guiding force and dedicated leader in the school's success on and off the field and court. It was rare to attend any athletic event at First Light and not see Coach Scott there, patiently and unassumingly making sure that everything always ran smoothly. He built and led a highly successful and respected athletic program that is well known and revered throughout the region and the state, having earned the highest award in North Carolina high school athletics, the prestigious Wachovia Cup, for several years. From Allison Scholler. I'm writing in support. I had the privilege of working with Coach Scott when we opened First Flight School. Not only was he an excellent baseball coach and athletic director, he was an amazing colleague and member of the administrative team. Coach Scott went above and beyond in every aspect of his duties, mowing fields, coaching, organizing all the athletic schedules for all the teams, and basically anything he was asked to do. He was loyal, positive, and supportive. From Coach Wes Matera. He's in support. He's served. Coach Scott has served very long time in several capacities. The one that sticks out to me the most revolves around the relationship we formed when I returned to Edenton as a first-time AD. Coach Scott was always quick to answer my calls and any questions I had. Sheriff Dowdy. He was the first CRO for First Light. And he says that Coach Scott took his job to heart, put everything he had into it. Everyone was watching because not everyone had wanted for the schools to split for various reasons. Ray was responsible for all the sports. You could tell as baseball season was coming around, he was excited to put together his team and coaching staff. This was a long letter, but I only read you part of it. And from Kate Tucker, I believe Ray Scott is very deserving of having his name displayed on the First Flight baseball field, serving as a constant reminder of one who taught and coached the right way, always exhibiting values such as honesty, integrity, and respect. What a great way this would be to highlight such values. And Alfie Wheeler, his was a long letter too, just a sentence for you. Coach Scott embodied what it was to be an educator and coach. The First Flight High School was fortunate to have him in place in 2004 when the school opened. Stuart Bell, this is to me, says it all. One sentence. There could only be one name that would be deserving of that honor, and that would be Ray Scott. And when the team met, our policy, there's several different ways that someone can be recognized to have their name on a facility. And the one that we felt totally fit Coach Scott was meritorious contributions to the school system, such as personal time, volunteerism, significant leadership roles, and remarkable contributions to the district. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we name the First Flight High School baseball field after Coach Scott.
So we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Bothwell. Do I have a second?
Have a second. Yes.
Second by Mr. Payne. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Scott, congratulations. And if you would. Mr. Scott, can I have you and your family come up front, please? This to you tonight, in token of the James Ray Scott Junior Field. And we will be working with First Life High School and their athletic booster club of presenting this and do a dedication at the home game against Manteo in the spring.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. Ms. Hitch, if you'd like to take that over, please.
Sure. We will now move to public comment, and I'll read the following statement before we begin. The Dare County Board of Education welcomes the opportunity to hear from the public during its regularly scheduled meetings. The public comment period is open for members of the public, including parents and students, to voice complaints, concerns, or compliments about school personnel, implementation of board policies, the quality of the education program, and/or school facilities. According to Policy 2340, presentations are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Obscene, vulgar, or profane statements, personal attacks, insults, and statements that are disruptive to the orderly operation of the meeting will not be permitted. The first person signed, I'm going to take them in the order that people showed up according to the way they were put in the folder. And the first person is Justin Bateman. When you come up, Mr. Bateman, would you please make sure you say your full name for everyone so they know who you are?
My name's Justin Bateman. Before I get started, though, I played for Mr. Ray Scott on a travel team. We were 16, weren't we, Trey? We were 16, and we had a great time. So that's definitely well-deserved. Definitely well-deserved. Again, my name is Justin Bateman, Mr. Chair, Board, Ambassadors, Mr. Bass Knight. I just drew a blank. I come up here tonight. I've been praying about this, thinking about this, and I come up here tonight from a point of view of a place of encouragement, not a place of discouragement or condemnation or anything like that. I have a question. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I guess, y'all can voice it out if you'd like to. Just over the last week and a half since there's been some uproar, I'm not here to talk about school lunches. I'm not here to talk about the threats or whatnot that were on TikTok. There's a few others that are going to bring that up, but just how many of you have gotten emails, phone calls, text messages, things regarding all of the information that's been passed around? How many have come directly to you? How much has the board, how many emails and things have the board gotten? Not including Mr. Bass Knight, just you all. One email.
I got one indirect.
0 indirect. Okay, Mr. Woody, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Brower.
I believe I might have seen one.
Okay.
That was addressed to the entire board. Or
We'll say
maybe it was
less than 10.
Mr. Bateman, I'm sorry, but they're not supposed to be answering questions. They're just supposed to hear your public comments.
Okay, so
Sorry about
it
that.
seems to me like less than 10. I had a conversation this morning with Miss Melissa back here. Just out of curiosity, I was asking her, I said, how many have you gotten? She's not even on the board. She's a candidate. What was it, about 30, give or take? Somewhere in there. And I'd say conservatively, I got about the same amount. That's 60 to 10. And to me, that just, again, this may not be a very popular comment, but it almost is like a trust thing. It's almost like a visibility thing. It's almost how often are you all visible inside the schools? How visible are you to the parents? How involved are you with talking to them? I'm at Manteo Elementary School at least once a week. I know just about all the teachers. I know a lot of the kids. part of what I know that you all do is you give Mr. Bass Knight a lot of, room to do his job. And I respect that. And I plan to do the same thing. But I promise you right now, at least once a month, I'm going to be at least at my school district, Manteo Middle, Manteo Elementary, and Manteo High School. I'm going to be in there just to say hello, just to say hey to the kids, just to be with them, just so they know who I am and they can trust me. Because again, 30, 60, 10 or less. That's all I got. I know my clock's about to run out at the buzzer. So just be visible, being visible.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman, for your comments. Next, have Christy Bayer. Ms. Bayer, if you'll just announce yourself when you get up there, I'll start when you're ready.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Christy Bayer, Manteo High School graduate in 1995. I have 2 children. One currently graduated 2022. One is currently enrolled at Manteo Elementary School in the 2nd grade. Hello, all. I'm here tonight to speak about the school lunches, Meals for All, breakfast for the students in Dare County. I'm going to jump right into it. We got 3 minutes. It's a lot to cover. So according to the Feeding America program, MAP, 13.6% of children in Dare County are food insecure. Of those, 32% likely do not qualify for any nutrition assistance, including the free and reduced meals. The state average is 28%. According to the most recent Dare County Community Health Assessment, median income $59,000 for Dare County. To qualify is $57,000. This leaves $1,600 a year. Doesn't even cover the daily breakfast or lunch meals. According to Regulation Code 6220-R states to safeguard the dignity and confidentiality of students in the serving line, reasonable efforts will be made by staff to avoid calling attention to a student's inability to pay. What are we doing taking trays from students? CEP, eligibility data. Dare County is eligible with an ISP of 36%. If you don't know what that means, I suggest you Google it, research it. The information is all out there. At this point in time, CEP would not cover all of Dare County, but the board could, the county commissioners could. Article from 2023, Dare County is ranked number 1 in the state with the ability to pay for these school meals. Dare County ranked 99 out of 100 for funding effort. Speaks volumes. So in closing, I'm going to be quick. I did send an email to all of you as well as the commissioners. What is the BOE doing long-term solutions? Have we applied for CEP for the northern beaches? If not, why? We know Hatteras is covered under CEP. Has the BOE gone to the Dare County commissioners and asked that the county help to provide meals for all students? Maybe the county could pay for breakfast for all. If the meal must be thrown away, why not let the student eat it? It seems at this point, it's already food cost. Are you willing to work with me? I've set up a nonprofit. It's ready to roll, but need answers from the Board of Education, Steve Bass Knight, on whether or not you guys would work with me. And is the BOE willing to adjust your negative balance policy so that all children eat and are not turned down? 1 in 5 kids goes hungry in NC.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Bayer.
you.
Appreciate your input. Jamie Wegener. Just introduce yourself when you get to the podium, Ms. Wegener, please.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jamie Wegener. I serve as the publicity chair for the League of Women Voters of Dare County. I'd like to invite everyone to our upcoming Board of Education Candidate Forum on Monday, September 30th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. and our Board of Commissioners Candidate Forum on Thursday, October 3rd from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Both of them will take place graciously in the Board of Commissioners meeting at the Dare County Administration Building for where we are right now. For those unable to attend in person, the forums will be live streamed. For those unable to attend in Buxton and beyond, it will be available live streamed at the Fessenden Center located at 47013 Buxton Back Road in Buxton, North Carolina. If you have questions for the candidates, we encourage you to submit them in advance at lwvdarenc.org/submit a question. And for more information, please visit our website at lwvdarenc.org or follow us on Instagram or Facebook. Additionally, please join us for the Make Your Vote Count rally and resource fair at Dowdy Park this upcoming 2 Saturdays from now, September 28th, from 12 to 3 p.m. We'll be enjoying live music, great food, and connect with our local community and resources throughout. We'd like to give a special thanks to the Outer Banks Community Foundation for their generous grant, which is helping make this event possible. Thank you and hope to see everyone there.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. And last but not least, Melissa Zahner.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Melissa Zahner. I live in Southern Shores. I am a parent to 2 Dare County school students, and I also happen to be a candidate for Board of Education. I wanted to speak tonight because recently there's been a lack of transparency for the decisions being made by this board. During the March 2024 meeting, the first reading of the revision of the school nutrition policy was approved. On April 15th, this board, with the exception of 1 absent member, voted unanimously to approve the revision. The same week, the information was quietly added to the nutrition page on the DCS website. The fact is, this board made a conscious decision that has resulted in our students bearing the consequences of administrative policy, as well as their families' financial situations. Going forward, it's essential that we focus on the impact these policies have on our students. There should have been a plan in place to be sure that no student would go hungry due to an inability to pay. Encouraging families to apply for free and reduced price meals is a start, but not all families qualify. The application can be a barrier for some. There's language barriers, information barriers, and there's also a social stigma that many feel when considering applying at all. Additionally, suggesting that older students should be responsible for packing their own lunches ignores the challenges that many Dare County families face. Packing lunch can seem an impossible feat if there is no food to pack. I hear your concerns about fairness to families who pay for meals, but we do need to recognize that a fair system would be one where no child goes hungry in our schools. It is commendable the way that these parents and community members have rallied to organize, raise money to fund these school lunches. But it's my hope that the proposed $500,000 cost for free meals will be explored in depth and that these conversations will include our commissioners and other representatives. It is an investment in our students' health and their well-being. School lunch programs boost school attendance and participation. They ease financial burdens on local families. They promote equity, and they can even support local agriculture. I look forward to hearing about the plans to tackle this before more time passes and more children are affected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That completes the public comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Hitch. Next, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bassnight.
Hello, sir. Board. Folks, thank you for being here. One thing that I wanted to bring up in our announcements tonight, and this has become very prominent over the last week or so in Dare County, as well as schools across North Carolina, and that's the social media post that we're seeing on a consistent basis. We just sent out an additional post this afternoon in cooperation with the Dare County Sheriff's Office. But I wanted everyone to hear me say this. This is not isolated to Dare County. This is a statewide epidemic, and including multiple states. We are cooperating not only with our local law enforcement, but also with our state law enforcement to try to track these postings down. There are multiple postings on multiple social media platforms that are going around. Some of those, the first original one included 2 of our schools. The next one was about 104 pages of 4 columns of schools, did not include any of our schools. The next one was specific to Manteo schools and had dates attached to it, which the other post did not have. And we've gotten another one, we got another one that's reported this morning that doesn't include any of our schools. So we, in cooperation with the Dare County Sheriff's Office, are doing everything we can. We do not, based on the information they provided, see any direct threat to our schools at the current time, but we are treating all of them as if there is. So none of this is being downplayed. When our phones go off, it's as if they've never gone off, and that's the way we're going to treat every single report we get. We will have, I think any of you in the Manteo schools this morning saw an increased police presence around those schools. We will continue to do that. We'll continue to do walk-arounds and checking the security of our buildings, and provide the highest level of security that we possibly can provide, and provide you with what information that we gain from any of the investigations. But I wanted to make that clear to everyone right now. That's everything we know. And it's not just about Dare County. Thank you, sir. I think next up we have our student advisors, and they're going to give some highlights.
Good evening. I'm Emerson Mann from First Flight High School, and I'm going to be going over the highlights from each school in my district. First up, Kitty Hawk Elementary School. N.C.G.S. welcomed parents to back to school night on Thursday evening with the new mascot, the Friendly Falcon, in person. N.C.G.S. is excited that their amazing PTO is currently planning for the annual Fall Carnival Friday Night Lights in October. Next up, First Flight Elementary School. First Flight Elementary had their back to school night on Thursday, September 12th from 4 to 6. They held 3 30-minute sessions so families with multiple students could go to the all information sessions. Administration, related arts teams, and the school counselor held a session in the library talking to the families about how the students can live in the KSCRP way at home to support their children making good choices at home, at school, and in their community. First Flight Elementary School will be having the beginning of the year data days on September 24th, 25th, and 26th. This gives all grade level teachers, support staff, and EC staff and administration 3 hours to meet as a team, look at student data, and create strong core and intervention plans for all the students. A big thank you to Harbor Grill and Pizza for donating lunch on all 3 days so all the staff could have fuel they needed to have to do this hard work. Next up, First Flight Middle School. For the first time ever, First Flight Middle School has a girls soccer team, and they already have a winning season. They are excited to see what they can do this year with the other districts that have girls teams as well. During the first 2 weeks of school, the librarian, Miss Brinkley, led something called book tastings with all of our students. The 8th graders had a special book tasting where Miss Brinkley collaborated with the local Starbucks to turn our library into Starbooks. Students tasted a variety of books while sipping on refreshers and snacks. The students had a blast. Next up, First Flight High School. Good evening, esteemed board members. I'm excited to share the recent successes we've already seen at First Flight High School as we continue our tradition in academic excellence. On September 3rd, we kicked off the year by hosting a post-secondary information night for our parents and students. This event provided valuable insights into opportunities after graduation, and it was a tremendous success in building bridges between our school, families, and community. Additionally, we have launched our Fly Time Intervention Period, a dedicated time for academic enrichment and support for all of our scholars. This allows us to provide targeted interventions, ensuring that every student has the resources they need to soar academically. We also held our first pep rally of the year with the help of the Student Government Association. During the rally, we proudly recognized all of our fall sports teams, while our band and cheerleaders energized the crowd. Our student body came together in their class colors, showing school spirit and unity. Lastly, First Flight High School would like to commend all the teachers for their unwavering commitment to our students. They continue to push our scholars toward academic greatness every day. As First Flight High School looks ahead, they are thrilled about what this school year holds and are confident that it will be one filled with growth, achievement, and Nighthawk pride. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Tobias Fleckenstein, and I'm here representing Nags Head Elementary and the Manteo school systems. First is Nags Head Elementary's updates. Nags Head Elementary is gearing up for a night of bingo fun on Friday, September 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. in their gym. They hope to see everyone there for some back-to-school fun. Additionally, the school will host its annual back-to-school night on Thursday, September 19th, offering 2 sessions. Session 1 from 5:15 to 5:45 p.m. and Session 2 from 6 until 6:30 p.m. Lastly, they're trying to decide on a name for their new mascot, the Pelican. They're still the Wave Riders, but they have added the Pelican to their Nags Head Elementary School family. Students will be voting on a name in the coming weeks. They'll keep you posted on the new name. Next, Manteo Elementary School. Manteo Elementary had an exciting kickoff to the school year. They are currently planning a Rock Your School week of activities during the week of September 23rd to the 27th. The events will include student spirit themes, classroom transformations, and grade level challenges. Also, the school saw strong parent and family support at their first school improvement team meeting, where they had 12 parents in attendance, followed up by 21 at their first PTO meeting. Both of these numbers are record highs for MES, and they're thrilled to see how invested their parents are in their children's education. Next is Manteo Middle School. Manteo Middle School had a great start to their year with 2 successful open houses. Last week, their history classes visited the Media Center to listen to powerful lessons in remembrance of 9/11. Also, they're excited for their soccer team, who just had their first win of the year. Lastly is Manteo High School. Manteo High School had a successful start to the year, beginning with a pep rally where staff and students participated in a dance-off. Fall sports are now in full swing, and all students can attend games for free by showing their student ID through the Infinite Campus app. This year, every student is using a planner, which has been working well. Preparations are currently underway for the homecoming parade and festivities. Additionally, bilingual AVID students are serving as tutors to support ELL students. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caroline Fuller. I'm from Cape Hatteras Secondary School. Dare Learning Academy has had a great start to the school year. We are excited to start the year with 40 students spread between our 3 sites. We currently have students at 2 sites that are cross-enrolled and taking advantage of electives and receiving much-needed support services. Next for Cape Hatteras Secondary School. CHSS has had a smooth opening of the school year. Students have been enthusiastic and excited to return to the building after an undeniably exciting in the air. Our teachers are working diligently to create an engaging and supportive environment. Our school is working on an exciting project with Ms. Ferguson, our media coordinator. Through a grant from DEF and Educators of Excellence Professional Development, Mrs. Ferguson was chosen as one of 12 North Carolina educators to attend a professional staff development program at Yellowstone. She focused her research and project on a theme that applies to our coastal community. With our students, she will lead our student body in a project comparing and contrasting the parks and looking at best practices of Yellowstone and Cape Hatteras National Seashore's historic and current and future management. More specifically, we will lead our schools in exploring sustainable tourism and climate change impacts. Information will be shared with Cape Hatteras National Seashore. CHES is excited to host a Hispanic Heritage Celebration Night next Tuesday, September 17th, from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. This special evening will honor the rich cultures and traditions of Hispanic communities through fun and interactive activities and displays. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our students for the highlights from all of our schools. Very nice job. And at this time, we'll take a short recess. I'd like to bring our meeting back to order, please. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Ms. Balance, have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Payne. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Aye, carries. Next, I'll turn this over to Mr. Payne. Mr. Payne is our committee or team chair of the Housing Task Force.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. About 30 years ago, the county started looking at issues with affordable housing. Within that 30-year time period, there were 7 meetings in those 30 years in which some good ideas came about, but nothing really transpired. So about this time last year, Chairman Woodard with the commissioners thought we needed an 8th meeting. So he pulled a number of key individuals from our community, about 24, 25 members. And in January, the task force was formed. So in the past 8 months, a lot of work has been done by a lot of people working towards essential affordable housing. Tonight, we've got Donna Kreef, who is our chairman, and Malcolm Fearing, who's our vice chair, and they're going to give us an update on what we're doing in the county. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. It's been quite some time since I've stood up here at this podium. As Mr. Payne said, I am the chairman of the Dare Community Housing Task Force, and we spend a lot of time talking about teacher housing at our meetings, and so I felt that it was appropriate for you guys to hear an update from us so that you're hearing it straight from us instead of hearing it reported in the newspaper or secondhand. And I asked Chairman Twitty if we could be on the agenda, so here we are. It's only an informational item. There's no ask. I'm just going to expand a little bit on what Mr. Payne said. So as Mr. Payne said, it's a community task force. There's actually 28 members. It's a very large task force. We have private citizens. We have representatives from all of the 6 towns. We have Chairman Woodard is on that. The county manager is on it. We have representatives of the Outer Banks Home Builders. We have representatives from the Outer Banks Association of Realtors. I am that representative. I am the Government Affairs Director for the Outer Banks Association of Realtors. We have someone from the Visitors Bureau, the hospital, the Restaurant Association, the Hotel Motel Association, and 5 private citizens. The Vice Chairman, Mr. Fearing, is one of those private citizens. So it's a large group. We've been meeting since January, and when we first started meeting, Chairman Woodard chaired it for the first couple of months, and then at his direction, we've transitioned to be the community-led task force, Dare Community Housing Task Force. I was elected as the chairman in April, and Mr. Fearing was elected as the vice chair. One of the first things that we did was adopt a mission statement. As is typical with most committees or task force or commissions, you like to have a mission statement. And so we adopted a mission statement. It reads just to collaboratively develop short-term and long-term solutions to address housing issues affecting Dare County residents, business owners, and workforce. These solutions include identifying physical sites for construction of housing units, building community support through appropriate outreach activities, and implementing regulatory reforms and options that can be tailored to fit each community's unique characteristics and constituency. So that was adopted, and we've been moving forward with that. One of the other first things that we also accomplished early on was we asked the North Carolina General Assembly to repeal that section of House Bill 259 that had been adopted as part of a state budget bill that preempted local zoning. When they included that in the budget bill, the local towns had filed a lawsuit. And so once the task force got up and running, we asked if they would reconsider that. And Senator Hannig included language this past short session in a technical correction. So that language has been pulled out. So there is no local preemption of local zoning regulations in the lawsuits that the town have filed. They have dropped those since that law is no longer in play. As Mr. Payne said, we've been pretty busy. We've heard presentations from, we had someone from the housing department in the city of Asheville speak to us. We had a lady from Aspen, Colorado speak to us. They've been doing housing for decades out there. They had very forward-thinking elected officials back in the 80s that set forth pretty progressive policies on housing. And so, Aspen is very similar to Dare County in that it's a resort area and they have, struggle with the same issues that we do in terms of housing cost and keeping their workforce there to support their community. We also heard from staff at the UNC School of Government that briefed us on what local governments can and cannot do with their money. Anytime local governments put money into housing, it comes with a lot of encumbrances, and you can only, according to the North Carolina Constitution, you can only use it for low to moderate income residents. And so that makes it very limited in what you can do. Tomorrow, we're hearing from Mr. Scott Farmer, who is the executive director of the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and he's going to talk to the group about what programs they have for first-time home buyers, on some of the other programs that they have on housing tax credits and whatnot. So there's a lot of programs that are out there for first-time home buyers that I don't think the general public knows about, and we want to try to work to get some of that publicized so folks can take advantage of that. At our August meeting, we heard from professors from East Carolina University who have received approval to study community opposition relative to workforce housing. You often hear the term NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And they had picked up on some of the press coverage of what had happened in Dare County in the last couple of years, and they reached out to us. And so we are going to be participating in that and helping them set up interviews with community leaders and focus groups. And they're also going to be holding 8 meetings throughout the county over the next coming months. They're scheduled to wrap that up sometime in the spring or summer of 2025. So we're looking forward to working with them and hopefully learning ways that we can better engage the community and hopefully garner some community support for housing. With 28 members on the task force, that's very cumbersome sometimes to get down to the nitty-gritty. And so we decided early on to have some subcommittees. We have 3 subcommittees. One, it's the plan and the site subcommittee. Mr. Payne is on that. We have one that works on nonprofit issues and legislative issues. And then we have a community engagement subcommittee. And so those subcommittees have been working. The housing task force works. Malcolm and I have been meeting with other individuals in addition to that. So there's a lot going on that happens beyond the task force meetings. I spend a lot of time doing research on this. It's a very complex issue, and you don't have to, you watch the local news, you hear about housing at the local level, you watch it, you hear about it at the state level, you hear about it at the national level. So it's not just Dare County that's experiencing housing issues. And one of the things that you quickly learn is that the metric that is used in finance and in housing is 30%, that you're only supposed to spend 30% of your gross income, your household income, for your housing costs, be it your mortgage or your rent. And once you exceed that 30%, you're considered to be cost burden. I read a statistic today put out by UNC that Dare County, that there's 30% of the household incomes, 30% of the households in Dare County are considered to be cost burden with their rent. That's not anything new to us, but a lot of people don't understand that. And when you get into these housing research, you always hear folks talking about AMI and 60% AMI and 30% AMI and 80% MI. And most folks don't really know what that means. I'll be honest, I really had to look it up myself and see what that number was. And so there's a number that HUD puts forth every year. And one of the goals that I think that this is important, is that we have to make that AMI relatable. so that you know what that 80% income level is, or who that home, who may be, that qualifies or is targeted as that 80%, because, it may be your teacher, it may be that lady that serves you your coffee in the morning, it may be that person that sits beside you at church. And so we need to make that relatable and understandable. And I think that'll also help with some of the community awareness and acceptance as we go forward with housing. Housing is more than just construction of new units. It's that assistance from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, or it's that making sure that the local zoning rules may be tailored to allow an ADU or a duplex. And so it's a very complex issue, and we're moving forward. We realize that we're not going to solve this. You heard Mr. Payne say this has been discussed for 30 years, but we do need to try to make an effort so that our kids can come back here if they want to and be able to live here one day. So one of the things that in our subcommittees and our task force that we talk about is teacher housing. In 2004, there was legislation adopted by the North Carolina General Assembly that gave Dare County the authority to build teacher housing. In North Carolina, local governments have to have approval from the state government to do certain things. They have to have the enabling legislation. That act in 2004 was entitled "An Act to Authorize the Dare County Board of Education to Construct and Provide Affordable Rental Housing for Teachers and Other Local Government Employees." And so, in our research, we've looked at that language and we thought, well, that's been successful. We have projects down in Buxton. We have projects in Kill Devil Hills that have functioned successfully for some time now. And perhaps that 2004 legislation can be used as a springboard for other projects. I know that there's discussions to build out there in Kill Devil Hills or to build some more units there. The 2004 legislation actually talks about 3 geographic areas. They talk about the North Beaches, they talk about Hatteras, and they talk about a project for Roanoke Island and the mainland. And so I would like to think that that the Board of Education would perhaps consider doing a plan that could be used to identify how that third geography there for Roanoke Island on the mainland could be realized. I think as the task force moves forward, in all of our conversations, be it at the subcommittees or at the task force, this teacher housing, it keeps floating to the top, if you will, because it's been successful. And this is something that we don't necessarily have to have other enabling legislation because it's already there. So I think that once we get to the point and the task force is doing a year-end report, that there's probably going to be a recommendation in there that we try to pursue this, or that we highlight the need for a focus on that, and to maybe do a plan so that there's something here on Roanoke Island so that there's equity, since the legislation already recognizes the 3 geographic areas. And I'm going to stop right there. I know Mr. Fearing wants to take the opportunity to come up here and speak, since he doesn't have a time limit on him tonight. And I will tell you, he's only got a little notebook. Malcolm comes to our task force meetings and he has these notebooks spread out. And so he walked in tonight with just a little binder. So,
Mr. Farron, before you begin, I would like to add what Ms. Creep was talking about. Mr. Bassnight has had a phone call last week from State Superintendent to invite him to Raleigh on October the 8th to share with them how successful our teacher housing has done for our community. So that is very nice for the State Superintendent to take the time to reach out to Mr. Bassnight to have him in Raleigh discuss that. So I just wanted to piggyback on that. Yep. All right, it's your turn now, Malcolm.
As Donna said, it's been a long time since she's been at this podium. She used to be, as you know, the director of planning for the county. Been a long time since I've addressed a board of education, David. and I came with no props. I came, well, one, a coat and new pair of shoes, halfway new pair of shoes. But it's a privilege to come before you all. It's a privilege to come before you and talk to people that their hearts are of servants. It's hard to do the work public servants do. You don't always hear that thank you or that attaboy or attagirl, but it's there. Our government throughout the history, or my 69-year history in Dare County, has been leaders in many things. Many things. And one of the people I'm going to highlight tonight that a few of y'all will know is Walter Davis. Okay, I see Steve shaking his head, and many in the audience would not know Mr. Davis. He was a quiet man, a very, very wealthy man that loved education, that loved providing young people an opportunity. He had the vision of a land transfer tax, busted up a friendship with he and David Stick. Not going to get into all that. But in that 90s, that 1% by his book had brought in $15 million. And I'm sure Chairman Woodard would agree that, and Ms. B, his efforts of laying that groundwork has provided opportunities for Dare County's future generations of government leaders such as yourself. What I'm going to try to talk about is the cost of housing, whether it's home ownership, and I'm a home ownership person. I believe people should have a pathway to home ownership. I'm going to talk about rents a little bit, and I'm going to try to do it in less than 30 minutes. Here's a here's a statement from a newspaper online group. It talked about how May, April, and June, the average medium sales price for a home in all of Dare County was $585,000. I'm going to give you some numbers if you bear with me. Manteo's, and these numbers come from Zillow, and something I've learned, you can look in different sources of information and you'll get some different numbers. But the source I'm using tonight is Zillow. Manteo's medium, that's not high, medium is 514. Wanchese is 340. Mans Harbor is 349. Stumpy Point, 344. I didn't have East Lake, David, I'm sorry. Waves, 851. Frisco, 512. Rodanthe, 654. Avon, 567. Nags Head, 716. Kill Devils, 508. Kitty Hawk, 632. Southern Shores, 798. And Duck at $974,000. Well, what does that mean? If you're trying to buy a medium-priced home, they would have to come up with approximately 20%. So do the math on the numbers. At a low end on Roanoke Island at $500,000, that's $100,000. That's after your student debt that some of y'all might have when you reach the need for housing. That's a problem. Last week, Ms. Creef and I interviewed some realtors about rental housing. What's it cost? What do they see? One of the things that they said, it's tapering off a little bit from the COVID years. But a shocker to me was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. And we have apartments and houses. My wife does, and I work for her. $2,000 to $2,400 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. That's in the Manteo, the Roanoke Island, and they had some rentals on the beach areas. 30%, what does that mean? Of gross income. I'm using a statistic that Steve helped me with it. Miss Midget knows I wasn't a very good student. She was one of my, she tried to teach me, I'll say that. And so did your daddy, told me that, Malcolm, you need to pay attention. And he was right. But I'm gonna talk to you, and these numbers could be off a little bit, but I've got some information about starting teachers, 1 through 5, the first 5 years of their career. Their income was somewhere in the $41,000 to $44,000, $6,000 supplement. Those numbers could have changed just a little bit. So that's $50,000. That's the number I'm going to use, $50,000. Okay. I had my office do what the net pay would be on $50,000. That's about $3,371 a month. Could be, and that's $3,170 a month. And I'm using a $2,000, the lower end of the housing or the apartment, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. That leaves $1,371. Pay for the car, pay for electricity, pay for groceries, pay for student debt. That's not what they're facing. It will be more. It will be more than that. Some of my internet advisors, y'all might not, you might not get some of those advices, from time to time, said, well, we shouldn't use government land or government money. Well, maybe that's an argument. Well, I disagree. We use government land for ball fields, for schools, for landfills, for office buildings. We use it for a lot. Whose land is it? It's the people's land. In Dare County, Bobby Appman, I believe Bobby's more so than research than mine, says somewhere around 80% of Dare County's land is owned by some form of government. So that is 10% of land left. That's land that's improved also. So there's a small amount of land available to build on. That's probably why the price of land is so high in Dare County, as I illustrated on the medium price of a home. Medium income in Dare County last year was somewhere around $41,000 for a single, $71,000 for a couple. So in my simple math, the vast majority of our constituents can't afford a house. That's not even talking about these young people and the 5,000 and some students that are in your school system right now. I'm gonna switch a little bit, and I see there's a note up here flashing. Malcolm finishes up. I'm picking with you about that. Teacher housing on Roanoke Island. Future governments, Board of Commissioners, school boards had the vision 31 years ago to start the discussion about teacher housing. They have been very successful. Government housing. There wasn't an outpour of criticism from our advisors on the internet. It was done correctly, and it was done with great effect on those who needed those houses. But I would say that after 31 years, we need to think about a sustainable plan for all areas of the county and housing for teachers and other people that are able to use those units. But it needs to be thought about on Roanoke Island also. Now, why on Roanoke Island? It's because I live here, is why. That's the real reason. But no, it's not. There's a Manteo Elementary School, Manteo Middle School, Manteo High School, thanks to your leadership and the Board of Commissioners, soon to be an early college. There's also a COA. And there's also a coastal studies. I haven't done the math on the need for all those teachers, but there's a need for housing on Roanoke Island for teachers. In closing, why do we do what we do? Why do we do it? It's because of this. That's what y'all do it. Y'all are helping that next generation to be leaders in our community. And I can say by looking at these young people right here, y'all make me sad a little bit because I was not that person at your age in school. I was trying to figure out a way to go fishing and how to go hunting because that's what I thought I was going to be. And I'm not. Why do we do it? Because we want them to have a better opportunity than what we had. So as we go down this journey of housing, we thought it was important to start coming to groups such as yourselves that have had success and bring this issue to y'all and ask, how can we help? Ron has been a very good member, a very informative member, a very cooperative member of our task force. I've talked to several of y'all on this board on the issue of housing. But education is but just one aspect of their journey. We want such fine leaders to come back to Hatteras Island, come back to Roanoke Island, and come back to the beach. And they can't do it if they don't have a place to live. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fair. Ms. Creek, we really do appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Yes. And as Mr. Payne as well, thank you for serving and representing our board on this task force. Sure, please.
Back when this task force was formed, Chairman Woodard, at the end of our first meeting, asked everybody in the room what their thoughts were about the task force. All 26 members at the time were extremely positive. I think myself as a data guy, over 30 years, 7 opportunities for affordable housing, nothing came out. When he came to me, I said, this is the 8th and this will be the last because we're going to get it done. Chairman Woodard, thank you. Donna Creef, thank you. Malcolm, thank you. You guys put in, oh my gosh, so much work. You wouldn't believe that this is almost a full-time job for these guys. And I appreciate the work that you've done in the subcommittees and everybody else, because we're going to make it happen this time. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Next, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Bassnight.
Jesus up here.
I'm sorry, Ms. Brule. I didn't know you were going to be there
Right
with
there
me.
in front of me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ms. Brule is with Mr. Bassnight, so.
Oh, good. Stop. There. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm excited to present to you our school performance data for the 23-24 school year. It's sort of the tale of a couple things. I'm going to bookend it with some outstanding data and some outstanding data, and then some data in the middle that's sort of flat. And I think I'll be able to help you understand how that works. So to start off, maybe. Here we go. Let me take you back to last year when I made this presentation. There were several areas in last year's data that I told you we were going to focus on. recruitment and retention, third grade reading, biology, English 2, ACT performance, cohort graduation rate, and our CTE credentials and our students actively involved in learning. Some of these you brought up as areas, I know Mr. Wicker had mentioned several of these that were areas of concern that he wanted us to look into and address. So these became real areas of focus over the last school year. First of all, one of the areas of focus is our recruitment and retention. And if you look over the last 2 years, in August of 23 and August of 24, we were down in August having 8 unfilled classified positions and 8 unfilled certified positions in the entire district. We're very proud of that. Another area was our graduation rate. I think Mr. Wicker had talked about this one with us, about getting our graduation rate up. This year, I'm proud to say that we are number 2 in the state in our graduation rate. It was 94.5, just under. The state doesn't report any graduation rates over 95, so it's basically 95 or greater. So we were right at the cutoff. There was one district that had a higher graduation rate. And if you look back in 1920, when we basically graduated everybody because of the data, it was 94.9. So on that, looking across that spectrum, that's pretty good. But talking about our high schools in particular, 2 of our high schools were tied for highest graduation rates in the state, and our other high school was tied for second. So we're very proud of our graduation rate last year in Dare County Schools. Career and technical education, something that we have stressed, and that's kids being involved actively in learning and in something more than just a 4-year education or going to a 4-year college, but giving them something, a diploma and something else to graduate with from high school. Last year, we set an all-time high. That number dropped just a little bit, but is still way up there. And we believe we have that number is going to flatten out over time. But if you look at our number for industry credentials that were earned, these are OSHA credentials, Safe Serve credentials, things that kids can take and go apply for a job with. That was 2,970 last year. Again, all-time record for Dare County Schools. Concentrators, that means that they didn't just take one CTE class, but they completed the pathway in CTE. And that number again went up from what we thought was a high number last year at 231 to 269. Again, these numbers at some point have got to cap out because we don't have so many kids and so many courses to offer, but right now they're still going up. And finally, these are the percentage of students enrolled in CTE courses that gain those credentials. And basically, if the statistic or the data from last year says that 80%, 8 out of 10 of the kids enrolled in our courses are gaining career credentials in our CTE classes. So performance ranking. On the left-hand side, those are our courses in comparison to the 16 districts in Northeast North Carolina. If you look at those same statistics or the statistics on the right-hand side, those are the rankings with the rest of the state of North Carolina. In the Northeast, we were number 1 in our 4-year cohort graduation rate. Our overall end of course exams, those are secondary exams, English 2, Math 3, second Math 1, second and 8th grade reading, and 3rd and 7th grade math, and 3rd in biology. Again, some of those were points of emphasis from last year. In comparison to the rest of the state, we were number 2 in 4-year cohort graduation rate, number 6 in overall end of course exams secondary, number 6 in 7th grade reading, 7th in Math 1, 7th in English 2, 9th and 8th grade reading, 10th in Math 3, and 11th in 8th grade science. ACT composite. Very proud of this. For the first time that we have any knowledge of, and I can definitely say for the first time since the UNC system changed the figure. Previously, you had to score a 17 to reach the minimum requirements for the UNC system. That was increased to 19. And you can see where the percentage dropped from the 2021 year to the 21-22 year from 67% to 46%. That's because we raised that minimum requirement by 2 points. But last year, for the first time, all 3 of our high schools exceeded the 19 minimum requirement for the UNC system. Growth scores. I talked a little bit about growth. Growth is measured by the EVAS system, the Education Value Added Assessment System. And growth in North Carolina schools is not based on year to year. In other words, what we did last year in growth is not compared to what we did the previous year in growth. Growth is compared to high schools across the state each year. So it's sort of a moving target. So your growth numbers, and if you look at 21-22 and 22-23, our growth numbers really exceeded the state. And I'll show you in the next slide, we had some tremendous growth over the last 2 years in comparison to the rest of the state, which sort of is saying the rest of the state didn't have those same numbers. Now, in last year's growth numbers, our growth score came down to a 64 in comparison to the rest of the state, and this perplexed us. So we went back to the state and said, what happened? How can we have such tremendous growth over 2 years and then something drops the next year that looks like an anomaly? And the explanation we got from the state was because the rest of the state caught up with you. We had exceeded the state for 2 years and they finally hit their stride and caught up. So let's look at our growth score. Now, growth is measured in 3 areas. Below a -2 is considered not meeting growth. Between a -2 and a +2, in the factor, those numbers, I know they appear on a chart to be significantly separate. They're really not, according to the state, that much different between -2 and +2. And anything above +2 is considered exceeding growth in comparison to the rest of the state. Now, if you look at the last 2 years, we exceeded growth as a district the last 2 years. We met growth as a district this year. The rest of the state caught up with us a little bit last year, and that's why we were at a -0.4 in our growth numbers for last year. Elementary proficiency scores. You want to talk about the M-class to start us?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to let Katie come up. Again, this is sort of our bookends looking at the data over the last 2 years. We've got some tremendous data for our K2 data that the state tracks, and that's what Katie's going to talk about. Then I'll talk a little bit about our 3-6 data and then our secondary data. Katie?
Good evening, everyone. Chairman Twitty, members of the board, I'm super excited to share some data with you from our M-class data. So Mr. Bassnight shared about, so K2, but it's also K. So we added it we always have done it for K3, but we also added 4th and 5th grade for middle of the year and end of the year last year. And so this data is all encompassing for when you look at the data in a minute, you'll see it for the past year. You'll see it'll be K5. So DIBELS 8 is also known as M-class. So it is a predictor of later reading proficiency, and all of the subtests contribute to a composite score, which is the overall score. And those scores are the single best predictor of later reading achievement. And it is designed to detect risk. It is not a measure of proficiency. It is a measure of risk. And so that's a confusion that a lot of people have, that just because, and when we'll get into it in a minute, just because you're green in M-class doesn't mean you're proficient. It just means your level of risk is lower. Because you're about to see some charts in a minute. And so these are just these are the subtests that students take. Letter naming fluency, so that's LNF. So I abbreviated them because if you put all of those in a spreadsheet, that is a little bit much. So LNF is letter naming fluency, and that's when students are given a list of letters, uppercase and lowercase, and they have to name as many as they can in a minute. Phoneme segmentation fluency, it's where it's their ability to segment 2 to 6 phonemes in words into their individual phonemes. And so those are the sounds for those of you who are not like literacy based, which is probably the majority of us in the room, right? Nonsense word fluency, this is my jam, so I could talk about this all day long. Like, ask me anything. Nonsense word fluency, correct letter sound. So that's when they are given a word that is not a real word, and they have to read the letters in the word. So they're saying, read the sounds in the word. And so can they say the correct sounds? Great. Same subtest is nonsense word fluency, words read correctly. So can they say the sounds and the word? So because some kids will say, they have to go, at. I have to think of a nonsense word. Okay. Oh, you can't do that off a cuff. Gnat, okay, N-A-T. We're going to not like the fly. But gnat, at, gnat. So they have to say the letters, the sounds, and then combine it. Okay. Word reading fluency is WRF, and that's assessing students' ability to verbally produce whole words, and they're real words, not nonsense words. Oral reading fluency, or ORF, is their ability to read words in connected text. And then MAISE assesses students' comprehension skills. And the one interesting thing about MAISE is that with that assessment is in 3rd through 5th grade, the first and last sentences are left intact, but it removes every 7th word is removed from the passage. So it makes the kids they really have to know what they're reading, and then it gives you a multiple choice on what the words would be that you could fill in. And that's what assesses their comprehension of the text. Any questions about any of that? Give you a quick Dibbles overview. So performance descriptors. So that's what I was talking about a little bit ago. So just because you're green or blue does not mean that you are on grade level for testing. It just means that your risk of becoming a proficient your risk of being an on grade level reader is lower, right? So those are just kind of what the performance descriptors are that we'll see in a moment. So this is historical data. So I'm going to give you a couple views of some things. So I pulled all the way back from 21-22, so just coming out of the pandemic. So when you see BOY and EOY, that's beginning of the year, and EOY is end of the year. So, but again, they're abbreviated just for the purposes to fit in one location. So when you look, I have the column under growth from 21-22 to 23-24 EOY. So that's that's the growth in there. You look, there is phenomenal growth in PSF, which is the phoneme segmentation fluency. And so as you go down, other than composite, as you go down this chart, that is the level of foundation. So that's the foundational skill. So PSF is the basic foundational skill. And as you go down, those are more complex skills, right? So you're going to see a higher proficiency up top, and it's going to get lower as it goes down, because the farther you go down, the more complex the skills are. And if you don't have the foundational skills up here, you're not going to have the ones down towards the bottom, right? And so that's what we've been dealing with all along. So if you look in, and I'm going to skip to the next slide because it'll show you the proficiency the number of students on grade level. So if you look back to 21-22, beginning of the year, we had 36% of our students that were on grade level coming in to their grade level. And again, this is just K3, because at that point, that's all we were assessing. But when you get to so I have the 24-25 beginning of the year data in there. We're still in the benchmark window, so you take that with a grain of salt, but about 60% of the assessments have been completed. But we have 52% of our students that are on grade level at the beginning of this year. That's huge growth. In that amount of time, that's a huge amount of growth. That's 16%, that you're seeing in that differential there. So I think that that's a huge success story. And again, go, like I said a few minutes ago, that when you see that in the growth from 21, 22 to 24, 25 BOY, you're going to see higher numbers in your PSF, nonsense word fluency, word reading fluency. You're going to see higher there because those are the foundational skills that we're building for them to be proficient in MAIS, which is your vocabulary and your comprehension. If you don't have the phoneme segmentation fluency and you can't decode a word, you're not going to be able to comprehend what you're reading. And so when we got the data that Mr. Bassnight is about to share with you, I think it was a shocker for some of us, right? Because we want to see these huge gains, but we also have to understand that we are making huge shifts in how we are teaching reading. And that cognitive strain on teachers' muscles having to completely shift how they've taught reading is there, right? Like when you are taking all of your time, sinking all of your energy into teaching this one thing and trying to learn that, that's going to take space it's going to affect other areas too. But I promise you, it's working. And this shows that it's working because we're seeing these shifts in the foundational skills and in our lower grade levels, and our kids are going up to their next grade level better readers. Are we there yet? No. But we're not stopping. And so this is just, when I saw this, when I was looking through all the data, I was like, this is amazing. And I think that this is something to be celebrated. Our teachers are working their tails off and it's there, and our kids are making so much progress. And it's just exciting to see when you have double digit 33% growth from 21, 22 to now. That's insane. Like that's like unheard of. Like that hadn't, prior to this, like we had never had that in years past. Like that's exciting. And also another piece I just want to point out is, we've talked about in previous meetings about the letters professional learning that our K-5 teachers did. Volume 1 is the first year. Volume 2 is the second year. Volume 1 is focused it is focused on the word recognition strands. And so those are your phonics, your phonology. Volume 2 is the vocabulary, language and reading, comprehension, writing. So that's the next strain, but they have to get volume 1 before they get volume 2. So it's exciting. So, and the last thing I want to share is this is just the growth data. It's just another version of it, and it's just more succinct because it's less columns, less overwhelming. But we see that we have 33% of our students saw 33% growth in our students that are going to, that are on grade level. In nonsense word fluency, we have 23% of students that are on grade level, or we saw 23% growth in students that are on grade level going to the next grade. And overall, the composite is the compilation of all of these subtests. And even with that, we have 16% of our growth of our students that are on grade level going to when they moved up. So it's exciting, and I think that when Mr. Bassnight's about to share the EOG data, and I felt like this was something that needed to be shared because a lot of times with EOGs, that's it's one day that a student takes a test. And granted, it's a compilation of all the learning they have, but like this shows a bigger picture that there's a lot of work happening too. And not just in K2, not just in 3.5, but also in K2. So, but yeah. Are there any questions for me before I turn it back over to Mr. Bassnight?
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Pearl.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So let me talk a little bit about our elementary scores. What you're going to see here is not a tremendous dip in our elementary scores. It's a lot of flat scores. We didn't see the tremendous growth, and I've said this before, I'm impatient. I want things to do this. And the reality of it, things tend not to do that. So you're going to see in our data that essentially runs from about third grade to sixth grade, you're going to see a lot of repetitive data from the year before. So it's almost as if the learning stayed or the proficiency rates between different classes stayed along the same level. But again, I remind you what Katie just said. We were in the process of teachers learning how to teach reading in a totally different format during this process over a 2-year period. And kids were having to learn how to read in a totally different format over 2 years. So I'm not as happy as I want to be about the direction of the growth, but we didn't drop tremendously either. Okay, third grade reading. Again, if you look at those last 3 years, it's essentially the same numbers. And I'm going to show you these charts, but as I move through them, they're going to look very similar. Fourth grade reading. Fifth grade reading. Third grade math. And we closed the gap between our third grade math and the state. Last year it was a 5-point gap, and we closed that down to about 3 points. So we're moving in the right direction. Fourth grade math. And fifth grade math. And again, not a lot of change in the numbers over the last few years. Fifth grade science. Then sixth grade reading scores. Seventh grade reading. And eighth grade reading. And again, not huge jumps, but in comparison to the rest of the state, the state dropped 2 points there. The state moved 1 point there. Sixth grade math, seventh grade math, and eighth grade math was concerning. And you'll see in a minute, we've already identified the areas that we're concentrating and focusing on this year, and I'll point those out in just a little while. Eighth grade science. All right, this is a compilation of the Northeast Regional Schools, Camden, Dare County, Currituck, Perquimans, Eatonton, Chowan, and the state is lime green. In comparison to the rest of the Northeast, Dare County is the teal, I guess the second line in each of the groups. And again, if you look at the 21, 22 year all the way through 23, 24, we don't have a lot of movement upward in those 3 years, which has shown in all of our charts. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Those were, and I pulled those because they were really the top 5 in the Northeast to compare with. That's why it's in there. Yeah. All right, high school. Again, areas of focus that we talked about last year. And I remember standing here saying biology was concerning and we were already addressing it. And we turned it around. We got it moving up again. And again, the state dropped and we went up. And I've heard lots of chatter across the state about biology scores. So very pleased that ours are going in that direction. Our Math 1 scores. We've already made some changes this year in Math 1 and expecting to see that number go up at the end of this year. Math 3, highest on record. And the state dropped. English 2, another area that we identified last year. State went up a little over a point, and we went up almost 8. And again, this is a similar chart for the northeastern schools where we compare. DARE is again, the light blue on the extreme right or teal colored. And as you can see, we've got a climb, consistent climb, and this year we outrank the entire Northeast. So we talked about this for a couple years. Goal number 1 was to exceed our pre-pandemic scores. So we went back pre-pandemic to 2017, 18, and we have exceeded our pre-pandemic scores in each of these areas. I won't go through and read all these. You can see those, and we've already touched on several of them. But in these areas, we improved over last year's scores. And to our knowledge, highest on record, our Math 3 credentials, concentrators, percentage earning credentials exceeding the minimum requirement for the UNC system, and our 4-year cohort graduation rate is the highest in the last 5 years. Okay, areas of challenge. Now I broke these in 2 different groups because I think there's 2 different things going on here. These areas dropped, but they dropped less than 4 points. So essentially they're staying about the same. So in addressing these, we'll be addressing these in a different way than we'll address the next slide, which have more significant drops. And again, you're seeing, 4th grade math, 5th grade reading, 5th grade math, focus areas, just like we talked about last year. These areas are where we saw more significant drops between our higher elementary grades and lower middle school grades. Areas to celebrate. We pulled out areas for each of our schools. Cape Hatteras Elementary, 3rd grade reading went up 8 points, 3rd grade math 16 points. First Flight Elementary, 3rd grade reading went up 9, 4th grade math went up 13. Kitty Hawk, they increased their 3rd grade math by 7/10 of a point, but their 5th grade reading went up 13. Manteo Elementary's 4th grade math went up 7 points, and in Nags Head, their 3rd grade math and 5th grade math went up 12.5 and 12.7 points. So the numbers you've been looking at are district averages. These are where schools excelled in specific testing areas. Middle school, 7th grade reading at Cape Hatteras Middle, it went up 12.3, 8th grade math 4.4. First Flight, 8th grade reading went up 4, and 8th grade math went up 4.8. And Manteo Middle School, 7th grade math went up 9.3, and 8th grade math went up 16 points. So even though our district averages may not have climbed, we did have some real success in the different schools. High school, I'll go down to Cape Hatteras Math 3 scores went up 1.2 points. First Flight's highs biology went up 13.9 points. That was tremendous. That's something they really worked hard on. English 2 went up 9.8. Manteo High School's Math 3 went up 12.6, and English 2 went up 12.9. And that was another area that they worked very hard on. So our benchmarking districts, I told you last year we were going to identify 10 districts across the state that we were going to benchmark with. Overall in the state of North Carolina, last year we were ranked 11th in the state. This year we're 18th in the state. Chapel Hill Carborough remained number 1, Union County 2, Camden County 3, and Watauga 4. Polk County was 5th last year. They dropped to 8th this year. Carteret was 6th last year. They moved up to 5. Haywood was 7th, moved up to 6th, and Wake was 9 and moved up to 7. Buncombe was 39th and dropped to 44th, and Currituck was 19th and moved up to 12th. Any questions? Again, I think we had some really good early grade success and some really good secondary success, and really some flat mediocre success in the middle with our higher elementary grades. But we're already targeting those for this year and have already put some things in place to address those.
For the, so this is something that really confused me when you say that our scores, because we did so well that one year, so this time, last year, so this year it looks like we didn't do well at all. Why do they do that across the state? Because it's so deceiving. Like, we're all going, oh my gosh, what's happening to our school? Like, everything was going so great. Why do they, what is the purpose of that? What data do they get by then bringing you down so much the following year? Like, what is the point?
Well, growth isn't factored on what you did last year. Growth is factored on point A to point B, beginning of the year to the end of the year, in comparison to every school in North Carolina. So that's why it can change dramatically. If the western part of the state grows a whole lot and the eastern part of the state don't, then their scores go up. But then the next year, you don't compare that to what they did last year. You compare it from day one to the end of the year. Right. 1 year's worth of growth.
And so when you look at what we did last year to what we did this year, we're still on an upward trajectory.
We still met growth.
Okay. I just don't like that.
And one of the slides, well, I agree with you, but one of the slides Ms. Sproul showed with us also at the beginning of the year, BOY, we're higher than we were last year.
Right.
So that is going into that right direction based on 24-25 school year. So that's.
Well, and also I remember when they put all that on the elementary school teachers, that they had to learn this whole thing while they were still teaching, while we were just trying to figure out virtual learning and all this other stuff, and then still maintain the levels of it that they did, is really remarkable. They must feel like they're on vacation at work after what they went through for that.
Well, they get back to work instead of going to school and working at the same time.
Right.
Now, I'll say this too. We had 2 elementary schools that slipped into D performance grades.
Right.
Both of those schools had been teetering or had been a D school. One of them had been a D school. The other one was just above that. And the growth scores were what really kept them from slipping prior to this year. But without that huge growth, they actually slipped below the C level and received a D score. We're targeting those schools. They will receive some specific resources. And I'll tell you this too. We believe, and I've mentioned this to you before, we haven't come in here with a whole lot of programs to add to what our teachers do and what our classes do. We talk about teaching and learning, and that's as basic as you can get in education. We've identified individuals that we call teaching and learning facilitators that we've placed in each of our elementary schools to sort of kickstart that teaching and learning. Those facilitators are not there to tutor students. They're there to improve instructions and help teachers to be able to go into classrooms, to model good instruction, to help teachers who may need another technique for teaching a certain thing. So we've been able to identify those, and we've placed a teaching and learning facilitator in every single one of our elementary schools this year. And we're doing and have done some specific training with them on coaching teachers on how to teach and how to do certain things or address certain standards to work with those teachers throughout the year. And that's one of the things that we put in place at the beginning of this year to try to turn this around in our elementary schools.
And
and middle schools, and middle schools.
Yeah, just taking a look at DPI's, what they've got on their website. What I noticed was the not proficient column is just about straight down the line, except for, as you mentioned, English and biology. The percentage of not proficient has gone up, and the percentage of those performing at level 4 and above has gone down almost straight down the line, except for biology and English. I'm wondering if you're concerned by that and what you might do to address or if there's anything you can do to address, as you did with the biology and English scores.
Yes, sir. Well, so let me back up a step. We started this really introducing data dives to a much higher degree than I think they probably had been used to in the past. And in doing that, you've got to start with something that everybody can recognize. And for the most part, that was district data. Here's where the district is. Then we move that to, okay, here's where the district is, here's where your school is. Again, looking at the overarching data. And where we are at the beginning of this year is taking that overarching data and digging down into each of the subgroups. In other words, which students in that overall proficiency rating are proficient and which students are not. So we can target those groups. And that's where we've started this year. That really getting it down to individual specific groups of students and providing those resources to those groups is where I think we're going to move that. That's the way we're attacking it.
Do we have the resources to do that?
I believe we do right now. Yes, sir. It's a different way of getting our principals as well as our individual classroom teachers, our teaching and learning facilitators to look at what they're doing and look at, you're really getting down to individual students in the classroom as opposed to, like I've said, we don't teach classes, we teach kids. So let's find out where those kids are functioning and give them the resources that they need. And it's a different way of looking at teaching. But I believe we're on the right track. Anyone else?
Anyone else have any question for Mr. Bass-Knight?
Thank you.
You're still on, Mr. Bass-Knight? Yeah. Okay. I apologize. Let me see here. We're going to turn over to Ms. Hitch for unfinished business.
That's right. So presented on your unfinished business tonight is second reading of some proposed policy manual updates. The policy 3220, technology in the educational program, 3225, 5015, 5020, and 3320 all came from recommendations from the School Board Association with our review as well. The school trips had also some recommendations from the district administration.
The policy, we had gone over this one, sent it out, didn't hear back from anybody. I think we're all good. The policy committee recommends passing these policies on second read.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor.
Ms.
to pass
Balance?
this up.
I have a second. Second by Mr. Woody. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I've got one. On 3220, technology and education program, one thing I asked that we need to start thinking about, we don't need it right now, but with AI, how much student work that's turned in can be machine generated as opposed to student generated. I think there's got to be a percentage there somehow. So I think that's one thing we need to take a look at to add to this policy. Excuse me, 3225, I apologize. I don't want students turning in 100% machine generated work. That's supposed to be their own work. So that's something we need to take a look at.
Can we put a percentage in a policy like that? Or is that teacher?
It's your policy, but the only thing I would say is that it has to be enforceable. So you would need a way to basically, you'd have to have a mechanism for enforcing that to say, this is X amount of what was produced, here's 30% or whatever percentage. I will say that Dare County is certainly ahead of the curve on the AI issues. You all have been getting some presentations. I know your tech folks have really been dug in and put together a plan for how to use AI instructionally. And the guidances are starting to come out on how we will use AI. So I absolutely anticipate needing to go back to the policy as we get good guidance on what that looks like. Well, and the truth is there'll be some problems we run into. We try to think of everything we can in advance, but there'll be things that you'll run into with AI that everyone will be like, that really wasn't on the radar, but I guess we need to address it in policy. So this will be one that will need to be updated for sure for AI. Mr. Payne, you're right.
And we discussed that.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was brought up in the first, well, when it was first reading and we, first saw the policy and discussed it. This is something that's going to be updated multiple times, probably through the year, just because, the technology is changing so quickly. And it's difficult to come up with a policy that goes ahead of technology.
Any other discussion? So with that being none said, let's have a motion, say aye. We have a motion and second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mhm.
Oh, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hitch.
Yes, sir.
Next, we'll move on to new business, and that would be Ms. Hitch again for policy.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we have brought several policies to you for first reading of proposed policies. Most of these updates, as you can see from the cover sheets, most of these updates were proposals from the School Board Association that we took a look at. The second and third, the 105, 1005 and 1007, if you adopt 1010, those are really just for being repealed at that point. School Boards Association updates to policy 1510. And then the last, which came up in public comment for sure this evening, was the operation of school nutrition services is among these policies. I just want to make sure you're all aware of that, as well as the regulation is included here, but we include the regulation for the board to review. You actually don't have to approve the regulation. That's an administrative function, but we always want you to see what the intent is on the administration when you put a policy in place. So we include it for informational purposes.
These are all just first reading.
Yes.
These are all for first reading.
Can we have some discussion on 6220?
Sure, you're absolutely, it's on here it is under new business, so it's things that you can take a look at if you choose to act on it under your policy 2340. I think because it is not an amendment to the agenda, that you could act.
Can you give us some more information on some possibilities or options?
Sorry, I'll do my best. If you go to letter B, meal charges, I think what the board had discussed talking about tonight was removing the red line area there that says affecting beginning 24-25 school year, student carrying a negative balance of $10 in a meal account at the middle or high school grades 6 through 12 will not be permitted to accrue additional charges until the negative balance drops below $10. What the board was talking about, I think, in this policy was removing that and allowing the next sentence, the board authorizes the superintendent to set the limit that students will be permitted to accrue in Regulation 6220R, which means removing the $10 charge from your policy and then allowing the district administration to make a decision about what that charge may be in the regulation, which would be 6220R. If you click on that one, it's the next policy. In that policy, I was prepared to request that the board increase the meal charge limit above the $10 that was in the original policy to $20 for middle and high school students. I would like to provide the board with a little more information before, and again, the board doesn't have to vote on the regulation. That would be left up to us if you chose to do that. But let me give you a little bit of background. I think that when it comes to the meal charge situation that we've been dealing with, that there are really 4 options that the board can consider. Option one is to do nothing and to put this policy into effect, allow the administration to decide what the debt limit will be, and we continue to do that. I strongly urge you against this option. Our staff, our teachers, our principals, our cafeteria staff are not meal debt collectors. Neither is our district child nutrition staff. And to put them in a position where they have to try to collect debt from parents is unfair. It is extremely unfair to deny a child lunch or breakfast. And I don't think that should happen. You asked my opinion, I'm giving it. Our second option, I believe, would be to simply continue what we're doing and cover any unpaid student meal debt at the end of the year, which fluctuates. It's going to go up or down, but if it's there, my question would simply be, if we're going to allow that option, why would people choose to pay their lunches? Because somebody's going to pay the debt at some point anyway. I'm going to skip my third option because I'm going to come back to that. The fourth option would be the CEP program, which is a federal meal debt program that is extremely complicated. And believe me, over the last 10 days, I've learned more about child nutrition and funding than I ever dreamed I would need to know. CEP basically says that a percentage of your student body will be paid by the federal government. And the more of your students, or actually the expectation of CEP, is that you feed every child. Now, I worked in a district that had this kind of program, and I can tell you right now, in spite of everything we tried to do, we could not feed every child. During the pandemic, when the federal government was providing money to put food out in school districts, the idea was to feed every child. I can tell you, we did not feed every child. It's next to impossible to accomplish that. And the way CEP is set up is the higher percentage of your student body that you feed, the more debt the federal government picks up from those costs. So basically, if you look at what I've talked about, from doing absolutely nothing and leaving it where it is to CEP, that's pretty much the spectrum, I think, of our options. We are operating Cape Hatteras Elementary and Cape Hatteras Secondary and DLI, the alternative program, under CEP currently, because the percentages of students in those schools, and it's not just free and reduced, but the percentage of students in those schools are higher than any of our other schools. So it's economically more feasible to do that. And in spite of what decision the board makes going forward, I think those schools probably can still operate under the CEP program. You can change your mind if you want to. So having said that, let me go back to our third program, which is Universal Meals. Universal Meals basically is a partnership between the federal government paying for our free and reduced meals and the local government picking up the cost of unpaid or unfunded meals. Those would be meals that were not free and reduced. I believe this is our best option, and I believe it's an option that would allow us to provide breakfast and lunch for our students at no cost to students. Obviously, free ain't free. I mean, somebody's got to pay for it. But at the same time, it takes away, it removes any stigma of a child going up to get a meal when they know they don't have money on their account. It removes any stigma of whether or not a child is on free and reduced, you would be amazed at the percentage of students in each of our schools who are on free and reduced who do not eat. Now, whether they're not eating because they don't want anybody to know they're not paying for their lunch, or whether they're not eating because they're bringing their food from home, or whether or not eating is their choice, I can't substantiate that. But I do know we have a high percentage of those students who do not eat. The idea of alternative meals has been kicked around. The days of being able to provide peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for somebody are long gone. We can't do that because of peanut butter allergies, but at the same time, the sun butter that we made the sandwiches out of, or cheese sandwiches, or providing vegetables and fruit instead of a meal, again, there's got to be some stigma to a child walking away from a counter with less than what somebody else walks away from the counter. I believe that this is a viable option for our students. I would actually recommend that the board request possibly a 5-on-5 with our commissioners, if that be your direction, to sit down and discuss some of the possible funding options for the Universal Meals Program. And I would, if the board is going to vote to give me the ability to set the regulation on our current meal cap, I would respectfully like to request that I remove that cap currently until the board has had an opportunity to meet with commissioners and talk about some funding options to be able to achieve this. I'd like to say that we would be able to do this before the board's next meeting and before the next commissioners meeting, so we could put that in place. Those are your options, I believe, currently. And I have literally spent hours on the telephone and talking to people that are doing this. There are 106 districts across the state of the 115 districts in the state of North Carolina right now that are doing some form of this program for the students.
Can I ask some questions?
In their district. Yes, ma'am.
How many kids do we currently have on that are, do we know how many kids regularly eat meat? I know it's not an exact number because some kids do. Some
We're
kids don't.
essentially serving about 2,000 meals a day.
Is that breakfast and lunch or just breakfast, just lunch? Is that both?
I believe that's lunch numbers.
So two.
Our breakfast numbers are much smaller than our lunch numbers.
How many kids, do we know how many kids are past that cap? I know the cap's going to go away, but
Currently, we have 20 students that have exceeded the cap, I believe.
Well, they've not exceeded the cap. They don't have enough left in the
To-
cap.
to
be
it
a
would
low.
throw them over.
So they're,
Right, it would put them over.
they're negative $7 or higher, so, or lower.
If we were to do something like this, they wouldn't be able to get, would there be accounts anymore? I mean, would they be like where people can get the extras, the ice creams, all this?
Yes, ma'am. They could still put money on their meals account.
But they would pay for that. We're not paying for them to have Doritos and.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We would pay, and thanks for asking that question.
No, so
No, no,
if somebody
no.
comes up with a bunch of extra stuff that they want to get,
Here-
they're going to have the money to pay
Here's
that.
what we would pay for, and I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
Because, we would pay for one reimbursable meal. And what that means is a protein, a vegetable, a fruit, a total meal. Now, if a kid came up and just wanted a piece of pizza, that's not a meal. That's a piece of pizza. So they would have to pay for the piece of pizza. But if they got a meal,
Okay.
then we would cover that cost.
If they come up with just the pizza and they don't have enough money on their account, they're going to not get the piece of pizza.
They need to get a meal.
Okay. just
But
wanna
they
make
get
sure.
one. They can't, it's not a
Because
buffet.
free's not free.
Yeah, well, you've got, they would get one meal, that you can't come back and get another
Okay.
meal or a second piece of pizza without paying for that.
Okay.
But we would cover the cost of that initial meal.
Okay.
So
Did you-
they get a meal, but they only want the pizza.
Tough.
Yes, sir.
What ends up in the garbage can?
What they didn't eat. But we're not throwing that food away. And that's the difference. We're feeding kids.
Right.
I would like to have a 5-on-5 with the commissioners to discuss this further sooner, as soon as we can. And to look at the CEP and look at the other options before we make a vote. I don't think we should vote tonight. I think we need more information on both programs.
I will say this, based on the numbers that we've looked at, the CEP program would cost us probably right at or a little over $500,000. The Universal Meals Program, we've calculated somewhere around $400,000. So it would actually save us money to do universal meals over CEP. And at the same time, I think it's more realistic to do universal meals because we're actually paying for the meals that kids get who are not free and reduced, as opposed to trying to serve everybody meals when that's a little unrealistic.
Mr. Chairman, might I suggest a way that when you're ready, that the board could, I suggest that just for purposes of your agenda, that when you get ready to vote, I would pull this one out separately unless there are questions on the other policies, and I would vote on the rest of them. You can do them individually,
We
but
don't-
I think I
that-
would.
Those are all first
They're all
read,
first
so we
read.
don't
Oh,
have.
that's right, that's right, that's
Yep.
right.
So,
You have Barry has.
Yeah, but your $400,000, is that at retail value or is that at food cost? Is it?
That number is based on last year's meal sales in our cafeteria.
So it's sales, not necessarily cost. So food costs would be less than the retail amount that the kids are paying. So you may have a $4 meal, but it might only cost you $1.50. That's just one, that's because your overhead's going to stay
Right,
the same.
right.
so your cost could actually.
Well, your overhead may
cost
go up a little bit
may go
because
up
you're
a little
serving
bit.
more food.
Right.
But it probably won't go up that much.
No,
But your cost probably won't be,
I don't anticipate that going,
because it's based on food costs.
right.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And I believe
Less than 400,000.
we actually factored in an increase in food costs because you always, worst case scenario.
So the volume would be there, but the cost might be less.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Over time, and we would hope so.
Just-
Based on conversation, go ahead.
I was just going to add, so the other thing, the dollars and cents of this is that about 45% roughly of our kids typically qualify for free, free or reduced, but right now there's a subsidy. So if they're free and they get free no matter, there's no reduced right now. That's subsidized. So the more students who eat under that 45, that are qualifying for the free and reduced, we get a pretty generous federal reimbursement for those meals. A paid student, they pay an amount, but we also get a less generous reimbursement for those meals. So really, the more kids that eat across the board, the higher those federal reimbursements are. And typically, our budget, about 25% of our budget is cash collected. The other 75% is federal funding. So really, the more we increase meal participation, the more the federal funding is going to be and the less local funding you need, if that makes sense. And even if you factor in increasing food costs for those numbers, you still wind up being more in the black with more participation.
Based on my conversations with superintendents who are already doing this, they've seen even this year, speaking with one superintendent the other day, they've increased which is basically the same size district that we're in, they've increased by about 4,000 meals since the beginning of the school year. Because they're free
this is going to be a wild
for
question.
kids.
We have right at $1 million in our fund balance. Give or take.
999,000.
How much would it cost to to do, to pay for meals for 30 days to buy us time to meet with commissioners.
I think you've got that on a spreadsheet.
Why would
By
you do
mo-
that?
Steve, look by month.
There's, so if nothing else changes, in other words, if we had exactly the same number of students getting lunch, it would cost about $46,000 for a month. If we got more participation, the
Maybe.
number would go down because we'd get more reimbursement.
Because we get more reimbursement. So, can I make a motion?
You're welcome to make a motion.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're still,
Hold on, before you make that motion, do we need to make any changes to this policy, accept this policy as,
the motion I'm going to make is budget.
So the policy and the regulation both read that for students who are responsible for paying for their lunch, that's what the cap applies to. So if you choose to offer free lunch for however long, it won't apply anyway,
Okay,
no matter
I
whether
just-
it's in a policy or
okay, I
not.
just want to make sure we didn't step over the policy
Yes, sir.
process.
I don't know if I should ask, how confident are we that we can get a 5-on-5 meeting in the next 30 days?
Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Thanks, sir.
You want to do it Friday?
Hey,
Do it Friday.
let's do a Friday.
Do it Friday.
My motion is that we tap into our fund balance for the $45,000, $50,000 to now. Do we have to give him authorization to do that?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Does that need to be in the motion? I'd like to authorize the superintendent to cover meals for 30 days out of our fund balance to cover all meals on school lunch,
Second.
effective immediately.
Lunch
Second,
and-
second, threat. Is that, I just
How
wanted to
is it
clarify.
necessary? You've 20-something students
20
or 20
students, yeah.
accounts? And we're going to give free lunches to the entire district.
Right now, our principals and they're all concentrated, this is trying to collect money and do this whole thing. And then with the kids not knowing what's going to happen when they walk in a lunchroom. Yeah, I think it's $45,000, $50,000 for 30 days until we can sit down and work things out. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Have the 5-and-5 Friday and just raise the cap in the meantime.
Because you're still accruing money, they're still accruing
4 days.
So accruing it.
Let me just step in on the procedural piece of it. So you started a motion. You could either continue discussion and then someone can
second.
make a motion. If that motion fails, then another motion could be made or some kind of modification to that first motion could be made.
So I'll restate my motion. And is there a second?
Restate your motion.
I restate my motion that the superintendent be allowed to tap into the fund balance to cover lunches for 30 days how about this? For 30 days or until some sort of agreement is reached with the commissioners after a 5-on-5 meeting.
I second.
So we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Balance of giving the superintendent authority to,
How do we define some sort of agreement?
At the
What's
5
that
on,
look like?
that's a discussion with the commissioners.
I'm thinking we should wait until the meeting happens, and that's 4 days, 5 days.
so we have a motion on the floor, so we got to go this direction first. We have a motion on the floor by Ms. Balance. We have a second by Ms. Bothwell. Now, further discussion.
That's right.
I staying with my motion.
Matt,
The thing is with the 5-on-5, once we have that meeting, we still have to have another meeting to approve whatever. So, I mean, you're looking, could be 3-4 weeks down the road before we make a actual decision on what that policy may be. So this would cover
whatever the 5-on-5.
that time period where the students aren't
This covers
able to
the-
have something to eat till we come up with our, whatever that plan's going to look like.
The 5-on-5 has a discussion between the two boards. That means the 5-on-5 comes back to their board, which we'd come back to our board. The
Yeah.
commissioners would go to theirs. They do not have a commissioners meeting until I think it's October the 2nd would be the first Monday. October 7th. It's the
That's
first
right.
Monday in October. So it will exceed, just because we got to do it now, we're going to go that direction because we got 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they actually take it to their vote if the 5-on-5 can come up with an agreement. So
Yeah,
it's
but
just not, just because we're having a meeting in 4 days doesn't mean it's going to
be-
take
It's going
place.
to
in 4
take
days.
place
Yeah,
in
yeah.
4 days, right?
I mean, we're going to do a special meeting for us.
Yep.
If, so, I mean, it's, I think
Well,
it's
our meeting's
3 or
not
4
until the
weeks.
following Monday, so we can have a special
yeah.
call meeting for this, yes.
Chairman Woodard, could you have a special call meeting? Could you have a special called meeting?
We still need to it's 30 days. It's buying us some time to work out details and to see if this can happen. It's 30 days. We have $1 million in the bank.
All right, I'm going to do a roll call by discussion, and then we'll move forward. Mr. Payne, do you have any more you'd like to discuss about?
I'll go back to what I said earlier. We've got 3 or 4 different options we need to discuss before we move forward.
Okay, Ms. Balance?
Yeah, we got 3 or 4 options and we need 30 days to get through it. And the kids should not be pawns in this game, in this political game. So
Let me go around, Mr. Payne. Mr. Woody?
I'm for the resolution. I mean, I think, any way we can help out the kids with with their lunch or breakfast needs until we resolve the problem. We need to focus on the students.
Thank you. Ms. Bothwell?
I agree with Carl.
Mr. Wicker?
There's a lot to discuss. I mean, the cost, we don't even know what the cost really is. So, that's where I am.
Mr. Brower?
No, I've said what I said.
Mr. Payne, you had another question on discussion?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, with that being said,
Motion.
motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Nay by Mr. Payne. Nay by Mr. Bauer. Motion carries.
Do we still need to do a motion to pass to give him back the,
No,
No.
that's why I asked that first.
okay?
It's
Making
done.
sure.
It's done. So it looks like that we'll have a 5-on-5 come Friday. So we'll get the info. I'll discuss with Mr. Woodard later tonight, tomorrow, of time and location. So we'll have that out to the public.
And, I just want to make a quick comment on that. This 5-on-5 is where we're going to iron out the details.
That's right.
I mean, we
Have
don't know all the details right now, but once we have this 5-on-5, we're going to iron out the details and a plan will be set.
If I may, we need the commissioners to do this. I mean, we can't do this
Understood.
solely on our own.
And that's why I think Ms. Balance asked for the 30 days so we could have the meeting 5-on-5, discuss it with them, and they can go back to their board as well.
And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you working with us to make that happen.
I mean, currently right now, we're very fortunate. 2:30. 2:30 Friday. We're very fortunate. We have 3 commissioners here listening to what's going on tonight. The other commissioners have other obligations. So, it's only going to be fair for them to have this information from their board chair instead of hearing it in the secondhand news. So, thank you. Next, we'll turn it over to Mr. Bassnight for a presentation of a donation request on behalf of Manteo High School.
Sorry, I went back a page and my computer's decided it's not going to load.
Is it on assembly?
It's just spinning. Hang on. Oh, there. Okay. Here we go.
Got it?
Yep. Maybe not.
It's not an attachment on assembly.
No, it's not. Mine's not opening. That's what.
You got it, Mr. Blackstock?
If you will.
Dare County Schools Policy 8220 sets forth provisions for gifts and bequests. Through this policy, the Board of Education reserves the right to determine the appropriateness of each gift or contribution for the educational programs of the school system and to accept or reject any proposed gifts. The policy also requires that any gift valued at more than $5,000 receive Board of Education approval before acceptance. OBX Tree Dock has offered a donation of their services to trim the large trees along the soccer field at Manteo High School. The donation is estimated at $8,000. Therefore, board approval is required.
It's the trees, I got it, finally came up. It's the trees, if you facing the soccer field that run along Scuppernong. And we have checked with the town of Manteo and talked to them about the required buffer that runs along the edge of the property there next to the ditch on Scuppernong. The town of Manteo is fine with us trimming those trees back. They're actually sort of growing around the dugouts on the soccer field. So we've had Outer Banks Tree Dock said they'll come in and do that for us and donate that with an estimate of about $8,000. And being it's over $5,000, I need board approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bassnight.
I'll make a motion that we approve this donation of $8,000 from OBX Tree Dock.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Woody. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Brower. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Mr. Bassnight, another donation?
Yes, sir. We received another donation for First Flight Middle School. If you've been there lately, they've got a wrap that goes on the front door windows of the building. They've also done one on the bus lot windows. It's very unique. It's got the logo for First Flight Middle School. You cannot see inside of the building where that wrap is, but inside of the building, you can't even tell it's on it looking out. They're also planning to do the windows across the front where the offices are with the same wrap all the way across the front of First Flight Middle School. This is an anonymous donation that's been given to them in the total amount of $11,500 to complete the wraps on those windows.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the $11,500 from anonymous donator for the wrappings at First Flight Middle School.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Woody, second by Ms. Balance. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Next on our agenda. Yes. Oh, there you say. The next item on our agenda is discussing the appraisal for the property that we have on Roanoke Island. Just want to let everyone out there know that the Board of Education sent a letter to the tenants 2 weeks ago Friday to let them know that we were bringing this up for discussion tonight. So they would not be shocked. In that letter, it is not saying we're trying to sell the property. We're not trying to give the property away. We at the board is discussing about having the property appraised. So the tenants did receive the documentation. Mr. Bassnight shared with me that some had to be hand delivered, but most was mailed from the third party that we have a contract with that takes care of those facilities here on Roanoke Island. So with that being said, the board, if they wish to go ahead and prove that we have this property be appraised, let it be known.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move forward with the appraisal of the Roanoke Island properties owned by the Jackson County Board of Education as requested.
So we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Bothwell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Payne. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. This concludes our business meeting tonight. And as always, I'd like to have the opportunity for each board member to start. And what we'll do tonight is we'll start it with our students advisory.
Hello. All right, there we go. I just want to say that I agree with the lunch choice. Like, no kid should walk away from the cafeteria without having food. That's just my opinion. And back to the AI percentage, there's no way to get that because kids will just like put in a humanizer and that's how they do it. So there's no way to get a percentage.
That's why they're student advisors to the board.
So there's a lot of stuff gone over tonight, so I'm going to try and keep it brief. Back to public comment. We had a gentleman come up earlier and talk about school board visibility. I really appreciate him bringing that up. I think that not only the school board being visible, but also, school administration, principals, assistant principals, teachers showing up to school events. I saw some of you guys at a football game last week, and that was super cool to see. And I realized that should be common. I shouldn't have been, I was a little surprised, honestly, but I shouldn't have been. There should be more, not just at football games, but I feel like, music programs, arts programs, there should be more participation from the schools. I should see the principals out there. I feel like those sort of events often go, they kind of sweep under the radar. But there should be more visibility from the administration out there appreciating what the students are doing. Also, there's been a lot of discussion tonight about, lunches. And I think that it's a great idea to, remove the cap until a plan is in place, or 30 days, or however that motion went. Also, big thank you to the commissioner who is over here, who's, 2:30 at Friday. You guys have a special meeting now. That's great to hear. I've heard a lot about students being turned away at the lunch line. I've heard stories of, lunch ladies pulling trays away from students and turning around, and that's got to be really embarrassing for a student to see, or to experience. And so I think that 30 days of free lunches will do some good. And last on my left, I'm trying to look over here. Oh, and I just three commissioners. I'm sorry, 3 commissioners. Thank you, Emerson. 3 commissioners. 3 commissioners. Thank you to all 3 commissioners, not just one. And I'd love to hear more about, the difference in the CEP and Universal Meals programs as that information comes to light.
Thanks. I think that the Universal Meals program would probably be the best fit for the schools in the county. Yeah, I really like that we are giving money to schools so that people aren't getting turned away at the lunch line. It is probably really embarrassing for a kid to just get his or hers food taken away from them. And, we obviously try to avoid bullying in the school systems, and that can, cause bullying. I also think that we should work on more artificial intelligence education for students rather than like setting a cap, like teaching students how to use it ethically and use it as like a tool for their work rather than, oh, but this amount is okay. Instead, we can use it like find this information really a lot easier than, more use it as a tool than just limit how much they're using and like normalize using it in general. A lot of good information was shared today, and I'm glad the threats on social media are being taken seriously by the Board of Education. That is really, really scary to hear. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
I was expecting to go last. I had the opportunity to make it to 3 open houses and visited First Flight Middle, First Flight High School, and Kitty Hawk Elementary. And it's just really nice to see, all the fresh faces, the eager faces to get back to school, get back to work. And then I also attended my first high school football game in some time and saw a really tough defensive match between the First Flight and Washington County. It's like a 12-8 kind of nail biter up until the end. But we're in the schools.
Mr. Wicker? I was trying to think of something positive to say tonight. So I'll bring up Toby again.
So Toby just told me that his Eagle Scout project had been approved. So it's one of the, I think I mentioned that last time, something about his Eagle Scout project. But it is kind of a great honor to be an Eagle Scout. There's only, maybe 1% of kids Scout seats you get that. So go, Toby, go ahead, smile. Red yet?
Yeah, he is.
Ms. Bothwell?
I really appreciate the comments that you students have made this evening. I'm glad you're paying attention. I think that's really special. No, what we're here for is for the kids. We never have ever said we wanted a kid to go hungry. So I'm glad that we're addressing this now, and hopefully we can put this behind us. And that's all I have for now.
Mr. Woody?
There we go. I think the universal meals program, I think that is a solution that hopefully we can get implemented in this district. I mean, I think, you don't want to have students not having meals or being turned from meals or, has anybody ever gone to work without eating a breakfast and they're just sitting there just angry and hangry or whatever that Snickers commercial is? And, so I think, if they can have a, meal and we can make it happen for them, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Ms. Balance?
When we first looked at this policy back in the spring, we were trying to solve a problem. And we made some changes thinking that we were solving that problem. And inadvertently, I think, obviously, we created another one. And I'm sorry that it has come to this, but I look forward to sitting down with the commissioners and working something out that works for everybody. And I just hate that it's come to this, but I stand by not making our children a political pawn in a school lunch game. So on a lighter note, I love that you guys are engaged and listening and commenting on these things that we're talking about. I look forward to your input on AI, because clearly you know how to get around it. I'm not sure we'll ever get ahead of it, but with you guys on our team, we might be able to figure it out. So I wish everybody good luck beginning the school year, and that hopefully what's happening on the roads to Hatteras Island are not indicative to what's going to continue to happen. But it's okay. We'll get there. Thank you.
Mr. Payne?
I want to say congratulations to Ray Scott. Well-deserved baseball field named after Coach Scott. He's a great guy, great coach, and he's given a lot to the school district. So I want to say hats off to Coach Scott again. I too was at 4 open houses. There's a ton of activities, guys, and you may not see us, but we're probably there. But yes, at 4 different open houses, had a great time in the schools. Just enjoyed being back in the building. This week, in the First Flight Middle School girls soccer team, they needed that too. So there's a ton of girls out there, and that's a plus. Being a former principal, Mr. Hiley at Northeastern High School will play First Flight this Friday. You might see me saying hello to the coaches and some of the staff over there, but I will be sitting on the First Flight side. Yes.
Mr. Bassnight?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Bassnight? You fine? Well, I have to echo what Mr. Payne said. It's an honor to have Mr. Ray Scott having that facility named after him. Not only the letters that we've received through this, but I can assure you that we could go to any student that he worked with, they would even give better recommendations for Mr. Scott to be having that opportunity for that facility. Our school system's amazing. I'm telling you. Mr. Bassnight, he presented some information tonight. It is a working document, as he said. He's got his leaders behind him, going out to make it better. They're not stopping. There's times like they got to make changes, as we talked about tonight about this policy. We thought we were going to fix the problem. Problem came up and it was a different situation. but you work, you don't stop, you keep going, you make changes. I don't sit up here every monthly meeting just thanking the Board of Commissioners just for me. It comes from my heart, because with them three there tonight, it was that quick having a 5-on-5 meeting at 2:30 Friday. That's not going to happen every time, but they were here tonight to see. They're getting information. They're getting feedback from this community. They know there's a situation. So they're here, as always, to support the Board of Education. And thank you again for doing that. I don't know if y'all had the pleasure of listening to Outer Banks' voice this morning, but Mark done a wonderful job on the boat building that's going to be taking place at Manteo High School. Very exciting things that's taking place through our CTE programs, through our biology classes, through our math, through our reading. Things are like that are moving forward, making Dare County Schools a strong facility, strong, and everybody wants to be here. That's a good thing. So with that being said, do I have a motion on the floor to adjourn? Do I have a second? Motion by Mr. Payne, second by Ms. Bothwell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.